Hi everybody. I recorded this once and it didn't work, so I'm going to do it again. This is one of my favorite books. I'm introducing a new math topic, and it's measurement. I have two shoes. I have Jack's shoe and I have my shoe. See the difference in size, and we'll talk about that. Like, why does she have two shoes? So let me start this. How big is a foot? Written and illustrated by Rolf Meiler. And a title page, How Big is a Foot? This is the cutest story. Copyright page, and this was written in 1962. It's older than me. Okay. Once upon a time, there lived a king and his wife, the queen. They were a happy couple, for they had everything in the world. However, when the queen's birthday came near, the king had a problem. What could he give to someone who had everything? There he is thinking about it. The king thought and he thought and he thought until suddenly he had an idea. There he is thinking. He would give the queen a bed. The queen did not have a bed because at this time beds had not been invented. So even someone who had everything did not have a bed. The king called his prime minister and asked him to please make the bed, to please have him have a bed made. The prime minister called his chief carpenter and please asked him to make a bed. The chief carpenter called the apprentice and told him to make a bed. So it goes from the king to the prime minister to the chief carpenter to the apprentice. How big is a bed? Asked the apprentice, who didn't know because at the time no one had ever seen a bed. How big is a bed? The carpenter asked the prime minister. That's a good question, said the prime minister. I'll go ask the king. So he said to the king, how big is a bed? The king thought and thought and thought until suddenly he had an idea. The bed must be big enough to fit the queen. The king called the queen. He told her to put on her new pajamas and told her to lie on the floor. The king took off his shoes and with his big feet walked carefully around the queen. He counted that the bed must be 3 feet wide, 1, 2, 3, and 6 feet long, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to be big enough for the queen, including the crown which the queen sometimes liked to wear when she slept. The king said thank you to the queen. He told the prime minister, who told the chief carpenter, who told the apprentice. The bed must be 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, to be big enough to fit for the queen, including the crown which she sometimes liked to wear to sleep. The apprentice said thank you and took off his shoes, and with his little feet he measured 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, and made a bed fit for the queen. When the queen saw the bed, he thought it was beautiful. He could not wait for the queen's birthday. Instead, he called the queen at once and told her to put on her new pajamas. Then he brought out the bed and told the queen to try it. But what's wrong? The bed's too small. The bed was much too small for the queen. The king was so angry that he immediately called the prime minister, who called the chief carpenter, who called the jailer, who threw the apprentice in jail. The apprentice was unhappy. Why was the bed too small for the queen? So if this is the king's shoe, I'll face this way, and this is the apprentice's shoe, do you see why? This bed's going to be much bigger because 6 of these, no, Luna, is much bigger than 3 and then 6 of these. Aha! He thought and thought and thought until suddenly he had an idea. A bed that was 3 king's feet wide and 6 king feet long was naturally bigger than the bed that was 3 apprentice feet wide and 6 apprentice feet long. I can make a bed to fit the queen if I know the size of the king's foot, he cried. He explained this to the jailer, who explained it to the chief carpenter, who explained it to the prime minister, who explained it to the king, who was much too busy to go to the jail. So instead, the king took off one shoe and called a famous sculptor. The famous sculptor made an exact marble copy of the king's foot, and this was sent to the jail. The apprentice took the marble copy of the king's foot, and with it he measured 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, and built a bed fit for the queen. The bed was ready just in time for the queen's birthday. The king called the queen and told her to put on her new pajamas. Then he brought out the new bed and told the queen to try it. The queen got into bed, and the bed fit the queen perfectly, including the crown which she sometimes liked to wear to sleep. It was without a doubt the nicest gift that the queen had ever received. The king was very happy. He immediately called the apprentice from the jail and made him a royal prince. He ordered a big parade, and all the people came out to cheer on the little apprentice's prince. And forever after, anyone who wanted to measure anything used a copy of the king's foot. And when someone said, "My bed is 6 feet long and 3 feet wide," everyone knew exactly how big it was. And that's why they invented a ruler. Because you can't just say, 3 feet of this, because then it would be too short. So this is why we have rulers. Okay, I'm going to post a lesson right after this. So I'll see you soon.